Penn State has gained some momentum on the recruiting trail, football recruiting, that is with a commitment from Karan Caesar. We'll talk about Karan. We'll talk about a couple other commitments that Penn State has in this 2027 class, and then end it with some more guys you need to know that Penn State is going after. We have our guy Chris here with us once again to talk about it all. Chris, felt like you had to be pretty excited to see Karan Caesar commit to Penn State on Wednesday.
Yeah, well, it was good to get things rolling finally with a commitment. I know a lot of Penn State fans were waiting to finally get that first commitment. And I feel like basically what happens, especially at different positions, but like corner especially, we got that commitment from Semajay Robinson, the corner from Florida, and that kind of kickstarted things to getting other guys to commit. And there's going to be more coming down the line. But Semajay Robinson kicked it off. Now we got Caesar, we got Gleason, and that's pretty much where it's at. Kicked it off.
Sure. Yeah, a lot of cornerbacks right now. Terry Smith doing a lot of work, which is not totally surprising, right? I mean, I think you would have expected something like this with Penn State bringing in pretty much a whole new staff and everything. Got a couple guys still left around, but Terry Smith is obviously the big name that sticks around. He's going to have relationships with guys like Caesar, who's from New Jersey, guys like Semajay Robinson, who's from Florida, Gleason, who's there from Pittsburgh. I mean, a couple of these guys are local guys that you're going to get commitments from there. But overall, I think a lot of the excitement with the class right now is a few names to watch, a few guys that I'll mention, and I'll kind of kick it over to you to see what your thoughts are. Maybe some other guys. Keshan Telfair from Ohio. Seems like there could be an opportunity there. Another cornerback. Could be a pretty cornerback-heavy class. Cooper Terwilliger, the tight end out of South Dakota. Sounds like Matt Campbell has a good connection with him as he's bringing that over from Iowa State. Linebacker Blake Benton from Minnesota. And then finally, Leighton von Brandt, the offensive tackle who did decommit from Penn State, but definitely some, attention to him still and the opportunity there. The offensive line coach for Penn State, Ryan Clanton, is still really trying to do a good job of making a relationship there. And I think that Penn State is going to slow play a lot of this. It sounds like they're not going to try to flip a whole bunch of guys, but they do want to try to slow play things. And if guys try, maybe are not happy with something and come back over to Penn State, it could be something to look for later on. What are your thoughts on some of those guys, Chris? And then there are any more names that you think Penn State fans need to be aware of?
Yeah, so who's the first one you mentioned? Was it
Keshan Telfair, the cornerback out of Ohio?
That's right. I love him. He's going to commit. In my opinion, he's a lock. I think he just had a visit. He actually just visited. I think today he was on campus. Mm-hmm. Was it today or it was either today or the other day? I'm trying to look at the visits, but I know he was recently on campus. He's been a Penn State favorite for a while. Interestingly enough, he's from Ohio, so I don't know how hard Ohio is pushing, but that guy could flat out fly. I mean, you watch this guy's tape, and he's a burner. He's a burner, quick change of direction. And interestingly enough, Penn State offered him to play both ways. Will that really happen? I don't know if it'll just be like a gadget guy on offense and mainly like just his main position being the corner. But they did offer him to play both ways. And you watch his tape, he's really, really good receiver as well because he could fly. He runs good routes. Speed kills. You can't teach speed. And he definitely, I don't have a 40 time on him, but he definitely looks like he could move. The other one thing I want to mention about Semajay Robinson being from Florida is the one thing this staff right out of the gate is doing, and you could see it at every position, receiver, corner, safety, defensive end, is they're going for size. They will sacrifice a little bit of speed for size. And that's not to say they're out there recruiting slow guys, but they love size and they love length. Robinson's 6'3", so he's a big, tall corner. He has good ball skills. He has good nose for the ball, and he has pretty good speed for his size. The thing with him is he's supposed to blow up. Like he's a lower 4-star now, and from like what you hear, he's probably going to blow up. So they're going to have to, I'm sure fend off some other offers. I'm sure Miami or Florida will come poking around in some SEC schools. So hopefully we could, just fend them off and hold on to him. I mean, he absolutely loves Terry Smith by all accounts. Terry Smith, like you pretty much said, he's the man at Penn State. I mean, if he went to Alaska and signed a one-star Eskimo, people would be cheering and saying it's great because we trust Terry Smith. I mean, it's the truth. They just, he's
earned it. He's earned it, man.
He's earned it. He's probably one of the best, if not the best, corners coach, DB coach in the country. He definitely he develops his talent. He not only gets them, but he develops them. He's just great at relationships. He got great relationships in Western PA. Like, he is the man in Western PA. And obviously he has some relationships elsewhere, but Western PA, he's really the man. And I spoke to him. I was at some different NIL events and I was speaking to him, and he's just such a warm, down to earth guy, easy to talk to. So it's easy to see why the players really like him. I'll touch on linebackers since you mentioned Blake Benton. So the main linebackers they're going after, Blake Benton is one of them. He's starting to get more and more offers now. I think he's like 6'3", 210, 215 range. I think he plays a little bit of safety and linebacker in Minnesota is where he goes to school. Very athletic linebacker, more of your speedy type of sideline to sideline linebacker today. But physical too. He'll come up, he'll stick his nose in there. Just a good athletic linebacker. Penn State leads for him. The linebacker they like the most, well, two of them that they really like, Case Alexander out of Oklahoma. The reason we're getting Case Alexander is because his brother Cooper, is on Penn State now. He was a tight end on Iowa State. He transferred over, came over with Campbell to Penn State. So we lead for Case Alexander and another linebacker that potentially might be the best. All these guys are very good, legit 4-stars. But a guy that might be one of the best, in my opinion, I liked this guy for a long time, was Brandon Lockley. Now, the old staff loved Lockley, and he was a Penn State lean. He probably would have committed. Coaching change happened. I don't know what happened in between the coaching changes, but there's a little bit of a drop off there. I don't know if there's a communication issue or whatever. But I know
Knowles has the connection to St. Joseph's.
St. Joe's
prep there. Yeah. So yeah, it's probably a Knowles connection.
That would make sense. But I know that the staff was down to see St. Joe's. Lockley was also just up for a visit, and he's very high on Penn State now. Some people think that Penn State may have regained the lead, but he's also going on a visit to Oregon, and Bama wants him. He's big on Bama. So, I'm sure NIL is going to factor in there, but Penn State did a great job getting back in with Brandon Lockley. So Case Alexander, Blake Benton, Brandon Lockley, one other linebacker they're pretty big on. And it's funny, all these guys are just recently up for visits or coming for visits. Ty Washington. Now, he is, how this guy's not ranked yet, I don't know. He's out of Virginia. He's listed as an athlete. He's also around, I think he's like 6'3", 210, something in that range. Just another very, very physical player, physical linebacker, very good fighting through contact, good at reading recognition. They're the three linebackers, they're the four linebackers I would watch out for most to get. I know Penn State will get, it's almost definite they're going to get Case Alexander. Very, very highly likely they're going to get Blake Benton. And between Lockley and Washington, there's a good chance they'll get one of them. It's not as definite as Case or Benton, but they're definitely right there in the mix for those two. As far as linebacker, do you want me to go down the list or just like go through the position real quick or touch on different positions or?
Yeah.
Because I don't remember everyone you mentioned offhand.
Yeah, go for it. I'll bring up guys as you mentioned them. Go ahead.
So, like everything, there's hits and misses. You know, like you listen to some podcasts, they're out there that are just going to cater their shows to make everything sound all hunky-dory. Well, we had a lot of in-state misses. You can't sugarcoat it. Notre Dame, unfortunately, has been on fire. Last year, they killed Penn State, mainly because James Franklin didn't want to offer NIL. And unfortunately, they're in on a lot of our key guys this year in state. So Abraham Sesse he's a high 4-star, he's going to be rumored to be close, could get become a 5-star defensive end out of Downingtown, Pennsylvania. He was big with the old staff. The new staff likes him. They've been in contact with him. For whatever reason, though, they still can't get a visit set up. There's no official visit set up. All the recruiting national guys have Notre Dame in the lead. That sucks. I mean, he's a big in-state player. Maxwell Heller is probably the top interior lineman in the whole country. He didn't even have, I mean, he's an in-state kid, but he's probably number one interior lineman in the country. I know a friend of mine is an insider, saw him at a couple camps, said the kid was great. He's probably going to go to Florida. Steve Wilfong just put a pick in him to go to Florida because that's where Phil Troutwine went. So, but he didn't even have Penn State in his final list. I don't know if it was a final 4 or final 5. We didn't even make his final list. That sucks. We gave our best shot at Keymon Spell. Didn't work out.
Crazy because you got 13 visits there, it says.
I don't. So, you know what? I have a buddy of mine, just a regular friend, not with like a lot of connections, but he lives, not too far, I guess, from the area Hill's from. And the guy, he owns a business, like a painting company or something, but I know there's this like little mini mart corner store in the Coatesville area, I think, where Heller goes, and he knows the kid in there. And he said that Heller would go in there all the time. I don't know if he has a brother too. I don't know if he said it's him and his brother, but they'd go in there all the time, and they just kept talking about like going down south. So I do think if Phil Troutwine, here's the thing, even if Franklin stayed on as coach, there was a good chance Phil Troutwine was leaving. Like that, there were always rumors he was going to go somewhere else or go to the NFL. So he was big on, but if we had kept Phil Troutwine, we would have had a good shot at Heller, and that's why he is, predicted to go to Florida. Big loss, Keymon Spell, we all know about. I mean, I give the staff credit, though. They put their best foot forward. I mean, I was told by a very reliable person that they gave the family exactly what they asked for. NIL package, whatever perks, whatever it is, but they gave the family what they asked for. He just happened to pick Georgia. The whole thing with Keymon Spell, we mentioned it before in the last, when I was on the one time, was they're trying to reclassify him to 2026. It was kind of a long shot. It didn't go through. He straight up told Brian Doan if he reclassified to 26, he was going to pick Penn State. And that's why picks went in for Spell, because it was all about the reclassification. So didn't work out. He's going to Georgia. I know Georgia's worried about holding on to him, but he seems pretty solidly committed with Georgia. I know his camp really likes Georgia from everything you hear. Cade Cooper is another top receiver. He was the number 1 receiver on Penn State's board. He's from Malvern Prep in PA. Malvern Prep's one of the top PA schools, produces a lot of talent. Now, he came for a visit when Noah Pauley was the receiver coach. Mm-hmm. Loved Noah Pauley. I mean, loved him. There were insiders that said, without a doubt, Penn State leads. They were close to even putting in picks for him. And we lost Noah Pauley. Okay, we go get another coach, this Kashif Moore. I don't know how good this new coach is going to be. He's a young guy. He's hungry. He produced that Skyler or whatever his name was from UConn. This Cade Cooper has he's shown zero interest in reconnecting with Penn State. It was literally, I was reading stuff on one of the boards the other day where basically they asked her, you looking to go back to Penn State? And he just said straight up no, for a visit. So, guys like Abraham Sessi, guys like Cade Cooper, I understand Campbell is new, has to build relationships, but it just, to miss on so many of these guys, these big, this area was absolutely loaded. And he's going to get some, he'll hopefully still have a decent recruiting class. But, I'm not a sunshine pumper. You can listen to the other podcasts. You know who they are. That gets about half the shit they say wrong. You want to hear fluff, go listen to other podcasts. You want to hear the truth, I'll give you the good with the bad. And unfortunately, we missed on those guys. Defensive end.
I think on top of that, people need to understand that we're not sunshine pumping when we say this, but this is probably something that some of this stuff is maybe just a year-long thing, because you do have Notre Dame coming in. They have relationships with these kids and stuff like that. And as we know, James Franklin was very salty about Penn State, how he left. And so it's very likely that some of these relationships that James Franklin and his guys had, I'm not reporting anything here, but it's very likely with him trying to get guys to flip to come to Virginia Tech may have soured, some people's thought process on Penn State. So Matt Campbell, new coach coming in, probably wasn't set up the best for success. This wasn't like, somebody retired and turned things over to Matt Campbell and told all the recruits, yeah, you're going to love this guy. This is a totally different situation. And again, I'm not trying to blame James Franklin for everything, but I do think it's something that needs to be talked about and discussed, because it is a very real thing that is going on.
Well, there's no doubt there's no love lost between the two staffs. And that was made clear to me by an insider in the know that, there's just no love lost between these two guys. But, the thing is, everybody wants to talk about Campbell just got here. He has to build relationships. And yes, that's absolutely no question. He has to get ties to the area. He has to build relationships. And he's been doing a good job of that. He's been on the road, going to big time school, like high schools in the area, like LaSalle Prep. He was at St. Joe's. I'm sure he's probably at Malvern. But Notre Dame, they weren't on this Cade Cooper for since last year. They were on him offered him around the same time as Penn State and Matt Campbell. And actually Penn State probably offered him before Notre Dame. So, and he's a really good looking receiver. Unfortunately, it's zero interest. For the receiver.
Last thing I'll say, and some of this stuff, especially a coach like James Franklin, he made everything about him. He didn't make it about the school, right? So even though Penn State came in and offered first, probably a lot of these kids, I'm not saying this for Cade Cooper because I don't know this situation well enough to say for sure, but probably a lot of these kids saw James Franklin offered me, not Penn State offered me. And you see that in some of these guys that are going and visiting Virginia Tech now when they weren't even thinking about going and visiting Virginia Tech. Anyway, we don't need to keep going on Cade Cooper. Move on. I just wanted to say that a few things.
It's all right. It's okay. So the good news, we do lead for Peter Bork. Peter Bork, big 4-star quarterback. I think he should be a 5-star. I think Peter Bork he's one of the best quarterbacks, if not the best in the whole class. I think he's a better prospect than what Drew Aller was. I think he's a better I love Ethan Grunkenmeyer. I think he's even a better prospect than Grunkenmeyer. He's a little bigger. He's a better runner. And the biggest competition for Bork, for Penn State, for Bork, is Georgia. He was recently down Georgia, but supposedly all of his social media and stuff has been all following Penn State and Penn State guys. When Zachary Gleason, the corner, committed, I think he said all right, let's go, or something like that on Twitter. So we are looking good for Peter Bork. He is coming up to visit in April, sometime in a couple of weeks, I believe he's coming to visit. Let me see where it says he's coming to visit. I know he's coming to visit soon, but we do lead for him. Steve Wiltfong put a pick in for Penn State. So hopefully we could fend off Georgia. He was also recently at Miami and obviously he said a lot of nice things. Everybody's going to say nice things after a visit, especially somewhere like Miami. And there's also other factors involved, like just the whole quarterback domino. There is other quarterbacks that Georgia's going after. I think his name's David Davison, or just another guy that they might even have ahead of Bork. So we're in a good position for Bork. Wide receiver, the main targets for wide receiver is our number one guy is Khalil Taylor. Khalil Taylor is Western PA kid. I really think he's gonna come to Penn State. I think he likes Penn State. He always shown that he liked Penn State. He was committed earlier under Franklin. At one point, while committed, he said he's not even taking, like other schools were trying to hit him up, he's not even taking calls from other schools. Obviously, the season fell apart. The coaching changed. He decommitted. I do think Penn State will land him, though you do have to watch out for Georgia. The one thing that's good that's been reported is we are going to be aggressive with NIL for him. So he will get a good NIL deal from Penn State. He's a PA kid. I'm sure Terry Smith is very involved, being from Western PA. So Khalil Taylor is the number one receiver. There's another kid from, I think it's Kansas. His name's Landon Blum, and he's like 6'4", 210. And it's interesting because some of these schools in some of these states that don't have real big, small towns, they don't have big schools, he plays 8-man football. But he's a 4-star. He's a 4-star. He's a big receiver. And kind of how I was saying, the staff likes bigger guys. I mean, this is just an example of what they like. I mean, the kid's 6'4". I think he's 210. We do lead for him. He did come on a visit. He absolutely loved Penn State. I do think it is reported that we do lead for him. I don't know if there's any picks in for him to come to Penn State yet, but I know we lead for him. They have another receiver coming up, a Deshaun Hall, who's from he's from Tennessee, and he is building a really good relationship with our new receivers coach. Another tall receiver, 6'5", big jump ball type guy. He's a 4-star. I don't know if we lead for him, but I know he really likes Penn State. I know we're one of his top schools. I mean, so, and then the last receiver that I mentioned is Isaiah Alvarez. He's a 3-star guy out of New Jersey, but a pretty good looking receiver. Just decent size. I think he's like 6 foot, around 180, something like that. But just a good all around receiver, playmaker. He's not going to wow. He's not like, he's not Jeremiah Smith or anything like that. He's not quite the level of Khalil Taylor, but a good receiver that they really like. And there is a receiver I want to mention because I know some people watching might be wondering this. Matthew Gregory. Matthew Gregory is an in-state receiver from Pennsylvania. He, for whatever reason, fell down Penn State's board. He's not higher on their receiver board. I don't know any boards that he's high on, to be honest with you. He's a speedster, but he's one of these guys that apparently is just more of a track speed type guy instead of just a good overall receiver. So, I mean, we offered him, and they might take him down the road depending how what wide receivers they hit on and they don't hit on. But he is overrated. There was a guy I communicate with a little bit that saw him recently at this OT7 camp that said he really wasn't all that impressive, didn't do much. Not trying to knock the kid, again, just keeping it real, just telling you what I heard about him. So there's the receivers. Defensive end, I find interesting. When I say bigger, is they're going bigger. I mean, really a defensive end too, because they had a recent visit from a kid named, I don't know if I'll say his name right, Adekunbi Adeteo. It's Adekumbi Adeteo. You can look it up. He's 6'3", 230 pounds. Now, he doesn't have the green light yet. I think he's like a borderline 4-star. but you watch his tape, he's twitchy. You know, I have always said, like, regardless of how big you are, you got to have some twitch, you got to have some bend. You got to have that quick, explosive first couple of steps, that good get off. And he has it. You know, I'm not saying he's an Abdul Carter type, but he has it. And interestingly, he doesn't have the green light yet. He does, you know, he might get the green light, but it just goes to show you how they're really focusing on size. Like, they will sacrifice, you know, a pretty twitched up speed rusher for a bigger defensive end. So I kind of find that interesting.
I'm watching this guy right now, and you're exactly right. He can play on the interior as well. I mean, there's some pretty big offensive tackles he's going up against, and he's got the twitch, he's got the size. And
they didn't give him a green light, so it's like, you know, I always said there might be a little bit of a learning curve with Campbell coming here, because, you know, at Iowa State, they're out there in the middle, in the Midwest, playing Midwest schools and Big 12 schools. So bigger out there was better. But being in the Big 10, you need speed. You know, you need athletes. You need good speed. And yeah, it's nice you want to have good football players too. So I just find it interesting that they didn't offer him one of the top defensive ends. Well, I'll mention a couple of guys, but one of the top guys on their board that I really liked, who is a bigger frame, bigger body guy, is Aiden O'Neill from Don Bosco in Jersey. I thought Aiden O'Neill was going to be a shoo-in the Penn State. He really liked Penn State. He's coming on a visit in the future. But he was recently at Notre Dame, and a pick went in for him. I don't know if it was Weltfong or if it was, I think it was one of the Notre Dame guys. They put a pick for him at Notre Dame. It's not a definite he's going to Notre Dame. Penn State still has a chance with him. But he's more in the line, if you watch his film, he's more in the line of the type of DN that they want to get. The bigger body guys. There's another guy from upstate New York named Zamar Tukes, who big frame, big body. I think he's like 6'4", 240. But, you know, they're just looking for bigger body guys. And Zamar Tukes and another guy named Keshan Telfair, who is from, I believe Keshan Telfair is from Illinois, and he had a prior relationship with our defensive end coach, Keshan Telfair, when the defensive end coach was at Northwestern, recruiting him there. So they're going for bigger body guys. DN, that really sticks in my craw, because this area, I said it last show, this area was loaded with defensive ends. Like, our recruiting region of Pennsylvania, the DMV, New England was loaded. I don't think we're gonna get any of them. The last guy we had a shot at that was a big name guy was a guy named Mackay Brown with an M. He's either from Connecticut or Massachusetts. But USC is in love with this kid. He was just out at USC a week ago. I mean, they're rolling out the red carpet. They have a ton of money. They're going to offer him everything. I mean, he's mentioned in schools like Texas A&M and I forget who else. But he's at all the schools he's mentioning are big money schools. There's a recent article that they had on him. He didn't mention Penn State as his leader. With the previous staff, he was high on them. But, you know, he's really blowing up. So I'm sure he's getting big offers. I'm sure he knows he could get big NIL offers. He is coming for an official visit to Penn State. So hopefully we could get some momentum. I did read On3 they were very close to considering putting him to be a 5-star. But I mean, man, there was Abraham Sessi, Mackay Brown, James Pace, Anthony Sweeney, Chris Whitehead. I mean, these were stud defensive ends. James Pace, for whatever reason, fell a little bit. But these guys were all from Maryland, Virginia, PA, and Did I expect to get 3 of them or 4? No. Did I expect to get 1 or 2 of them? Yeah. And I don't know. It's going to be a long shot. If we could salvage Aiden O'Neill, get Keshan Taylor and Tooks, that will still be a good defensive end class. I mean, nothing wrong with those guys. They're not quite the level of the other guys I mentioned, but it is what it is. So offensive tackle, I don't know where they're going. I mean, they're still trying to get Leighton von Brandt. I will say, I'll tell you a guy, Leighton von Brandt, I think, is a little overrated. He's a legit 4-star. Buddy of mine seen him at camp, and I'll tell you a guy who Penn State's big on, and you watch his tape, to me, he's just as good as von Brandt, and he was just out visiting Ohio State. Ryan Robbins, Western PA kid. I don't know if you've seen him at all because he was just recently at Ohio State, so I believe he has an offer there. He's just a 3-star, but when you watch his film, you see his movement skills, you see his length. He looks just as good as Leighton von Brandt to me. Besides von Brandt, they were trying to get Marcus Howman up for a visit, who is from Illinois or Iowa. He's leaning somewhere, one of the Midwest schools. So there's a little bit of a concern at tackle because there's just not a lot of big tackles on their board. Like they just don't. There's just not a lot of guys to choose from thus far. As far as guys coming for visits, it's like you keep seeing these different guys they're showing interest in that they're not even ranked. So interior line, they got a number of guys like Will Slagle, Kyler Kuhn, some other guys that I think they'll be all right on the interior. Running back, they lost out. Besides Spill, one of the other guys they were going after was Isaiah Rogers, who was from Massachusetts, and he had a previous relationship with Savion Huggins. He fell a little bit on the board. He's just a good all-around back, just decent size, speed, the whole 9 yards. He's not like elite in any one area, but just good all-around back. But I guess he dropped a little bit his junior year. He didn't exactly progress quite like people hoped. So he fell a little bit in the rankings, but he was still a take for Penn State. He goes on and visits to Notre Dame, and, he had a list. He had like a top 5 or 6 schools, whatever. He goes to Notre Dame and comes back home and says, forget about my top 10 list. I'm committing on Monday. He goes, I'm committing, he was basically committing like in a day or two, and he committed to Notre Dame. So as for running backs, there's a running back named Darryl Pally Rhodes. I believe he's from the DC area. Big bruising type back. He's a big in between the tackles type back. Looks like he has decent speed, but not a burner. He's coming for a visit. I think we got a good shot at him. And there's a running back from South Carolina, another big 6'1", probably 200-plus pound back named Aiden Gibson. He's coming up for a visit. Not a burner, just good in between the tackle. I think he's like a borderline 4-star. Good in between the tackle back. And there's another back name, one other guy I'll mention from New Jersey. I think he goes to Paramus. Named Chukwara Odu. Big back, 6 foot, about the same size as that Darryl Pally Rose. He's a big bruising type back. Supposedly has pretty good speed, quick change of direction, but he didn't get the green light yet. So I don't know if the staff is waiting. He was, I don't know if he was a late bloomer because he's just starting to get offers. It seems like this past month he didn't have a lot of big offers. But he's starting to get more offers and more interest now. Maybe the staff is waiting to bring him up to test him out a little bit, maybe get testing numbers on him. But that's pretty much where they're at in recruiting. It should be a big class. I know they could sign up to 30, even over 30 guys, but people are predicting right around 30 guys. Top guys, Taylor, obviously Peter Bork, Khalil Taylor. And if they hit on all their top targets, or the majority of their top targets, it'll be a decent class. if they miss on half of them, that is going to be a little iffy. I don't predict the top 15 class. I think they'll probably finish somewhere between 15 and 20-ish. But, for his first year, building relationships, doing what he could, salvaging what he, whatever he can, he's doing a good job.
Yeah. Like I said, you're going to have to see what happens in the coming years as well. Him coming in, I think he's obviously got some relationships out there with some of the guys he pointed out, which is good. But overall, just get a good start to it here. You can get a top 20, top 10 class, something like that. Just be in that range. I know last year everybody thought the sky was falling with Ohio State. That was the class where it was like, oh no, everything's terrible. And then figured out they had a lot of really good evaluations in that class. And then also at the end of it all, Ohio State got some good flips as well. So you never know. I'm not saying that Penn State's going to get a whole bunch of flips here or anything like that. I'm not even saying that they need to get a whole bunch of 5 stars, but I do think that, this is a coaching staff that is going to slow play things a little bit. They really want to make sure they get things right. And so I would just tell people to hesitate your judgments until signing day. Let's see what signing day looks like. Let's see what the final rankings look like. And typically the final rankings are a whole lot more accurate than the rankings we get in April.
Yeah, and one guy I forgot to mention in the position that you mentioned was Cooper Terwilliger in tight end. So he's another one, was all Penn State. The kid was all Penn State, broke a record, went on a visit to Notre Dame, and now there's some Notre Dame insiders that think Notre Dame might have gotten the lead and gained momentum. But he is coming back for a visit to Penn State. He's had a long connection with the staff going back to Iowa State. And the good thing about with our offense coordinator, Taylor Mauser, they love the tight ends. They're going to be playing a lot of 12 and even 13 sets. So I can't imagine, if you're a tight end, a better school to go to than Penn State. And I'm the furthest thing from a homer. Anybody that knows me knows that. But I mean, with the way they're going to be using tight ends in this offense, it's definitely going to be a tight end school. So hopefully they can get back into it with Cooper Terwilliger. I'll tell you, a guy that they have coming up for a visit. He's an Alabama commit. Well, I don't know if he decommitted yet, but he's an Alabama commit. I know he's looking elsewhere though. A guy named Colt Lumpris. I think this guy's great. Colt Lumpris is, to me, he's listed as a tight end, but to me, he's more of like a big receiver. He kind of reminds me of Kyle Pitts. I really like this kid, and he really likes Penn State. So if we could get this kid, to me, that's just like getting a big-time receiver, because he's the way they use tight ends and the way this kid's built, he's more like a receiver than an inline tight end. And there's actually another tight end that goes to the same high school as this Colt Lumpris, named Sean Curry, who was a lacrosse kid who was committed to Virginia, because I guess they had a good lacrosse school, but he decommitted from Virginia, and he likes Penn State too. So between Terwilliger, Curry, and Lumpris, I mean, I don't know how many tight ends they're going to take, if they're going to take 2 or 3, but hopefully they get back and, they could regain momentum with Terwilliger. I really hope they get Lumpris. Safety, the last position I'll mention, they just had a kid, a 4-star, another big body kid, Cooper Onmacht, I think his name is. I believe he's from Kansas. He came on a visit to Penn State, knocked it out of the park. He's supposed to come back for an official visit. Loved his visit, and there was an article that said that it's worth the sacrifice to go to Penn State. What he meant by that is like being so far away and living in Kansas that it'd be worth the sacrifice. Kid's a baller, kid's a player. Gabriel Jenkins, Western PA kid. Penn State's. He was once committed to Penn State, decommitted. I know we lead for him. He's just a good all-around athlete. He's our other safety. And they really like this kid from DeMatha Catholic in Maryland named Kyner Crum, who is, I think he's a 3-star, but this Kyner Crum is, in my opinion, he's a 4-star talent. You watch him play, you look at his movement skills, you look at his ball skills, his aggressiveness. So they're the three big safeties, 3 big tight ends they're going after. just hopefully they hit on 80-90% of these guys, and we'll be all right.
Very interesting stuff. We got Chris giving us all the intel here for the Penn State Recruiting. We appreciate you doing it, Chris, and we appreciate you listening and watching the Big Ten Huddle. Chris, is there anything else recruiting-wise you want to mention before we get out of here?
Nothing recruiting-wise. I just know it was made very clear that this staff could absolutely – now every staff says this, but this staff more than anything could care less about rankings. They're very big into trusting their evaluations. They're supposed to be some of the top evaluators in the game. They have a reputation for being great evaluators. So, this staff doesn't care if they finish 15th, 25th, or 30th. They're just going to trust their evaluations. You just got to see if they could close on these guys. Hopefully, they could close on these guys, and we'll have a pretty good class. You know what I did hear that, and I heard this from a couple very reliable sources. Franklin did care about recruiting rankings, and supposedly Franklin would push certain people at 24/7 and on-3 rivals, that he would push them to give 3 stars, his guys bumps up to 4 stars. And it's funny because I remember the very first time I saw Franklin, this was before NIL. It was when he started coaching, he had these coaches caravan tours he did, where him and some other coaches, like a volleyball coach, whoever, would come and they do these little, just like a banquet tour type thing, where they'd speaking engagement, whatever. And he was bragging. He's like, we were number 1, but then this team went out and signed it. So he cares about optics. He cared, but I found it interesting that he pushed, from reliable sources said that he absolutely did push 24/7 on 3 to give, to give some guys recruiting bumps. And I'm not going to say who exactly, but there were 3 stars that he got bumped to a 4-star because he cared about the rankings. This staff is low key. What this staff is doing that people like a lot. The Penn State fan base was always fractured a little bit, and you had your older Joe Paterno type fans, then you had your younger guys. And there's always a little bit of a divide there for whatever reason. He's doing a good job of bringing them together. The last stat, when Franklin was here, he did not do a good, and LeVar Arrington talked about this on his Roar Plus. He didn't do a good job of connecting with Letterman and bringing Letterman back and getting them involved. Campbell's doing a great job of that. He's bringing Letterman back. He's getting them more involved. He's inviting them to practices. He's doing a thing, a decades thing, to reach decade. He's bringing the legends back and stuff like that. I mean, everything about Campbell's personality and the way he's going about things and his staff, everybody loves at Penn State. They just love his work ethic and how he's going about things and connecting with the community and connecting with the Letterman.
Yeah, and he's one of the guys that doesn't make it about himself, right? I mean, I know we get on here and we talk about Franklin and stuff like that. Just the stuff I continue to hear time and time again with him. It goes to show how much Franklin wanted to make everything about him, and Matt Campbell is the complete opposite way. He wants to make everything about the school, about the players, everything else, and it's really, really refreshing for Penn State fans and everybody else. We'll see what the season looks like. Obviously, everything's nice right now in the offseason. We'll see what the season looks like. Yep. But at least for now, you're going to have really quality young men on this team, and you're going to have a really quality coaching staff that makes it more about the schools than themselves.
Yep, absolutely. One last thing I'll mention is Alex Mansky, who I'm pretty high on him. He's their backup quarterback. He's a 4-star. He's out for the spring. Some people probably know, some don't. I don't know, I guess he had some kind of lingering injury, and at some point he was going to have surgery. So I guess they figured let him have surgery now so he could be back for fall camp. But he's out for the spring. So are their receivers. They're just precautionary, holding them out with some minor injuries. But other than that, a lot of excitement at Penn State, and we're ready to get the Campbell era underway.
Love to hear it, and we'll love to see it happen. Very excited for the Penn State season. Very excited to see what's going to happen in the recruiting cycle as we lead up to it. Just over 200 days until the college football season kicks off. Might seem a little long, but you know what? We're closer than we were in March. We were closer than we were in February. So that's the way I guess I'm looking at it.
Yeah, we're getting there, That's what's good about recruiting. This is why I got so into recruiting, because I don't have a lot of interest in life, and I love football. I love Penn State college football, and these recruiting battles is what keeps, that's what keeps you interested in the off season and the down season,
For sure.